are back with comedian Boyale, and I'm quitting alcohol. So, the deeper I read into geopolitics and history, the more I understand I have never known anything. I have never, ever had any idea about absolutely anything. Everything was just fed to me. Everything I've ever said is just some bullshit I parroted. Everything I've ever been told is more or less a lie. Everything. And the deeper you go into it, the more it's revealed that what you're really dealing with here is just is just pure evil. That's all there is to it. And the realization that pretty much the world is being run by pure evil has made me think about faith a little bit. A lot, actually, especially over the last week or so. Because I just don't see how you can confront pure evil without some sort of faith. I don't think there's any other way. You can't just be yourself out there with your ideas and confront pure evil and survive. And I don't even mean live. I mean survive spiritually. You can survive something but completely die. And you can also die but protect your soul. And when I think of it, I really think about the Muslims. I'm like, how are the Muslims getting through this shit? And generally it's their faith. Like, you never see a Muslim turn their back on God. And it's not just Muslims, like Christians, Catholics, Jews, real practitioners of the faith, of any faith, never turn their back on it. And it gives them I wouldn't even say courage. It gives them the ability to confront pure evil. And religion may have been created or whatever, and it can be used as a control structure, and I guess it has throughout history, but I don't see any other way you can confront pure evil than with some sort of faith in a higher power of some sort. I don't even care what you choose, but I don't see any other way. Even if it's just love. Even if you just choose love. So I've just been reading and digging through. I found this geopolitical analyst and he's given me some sort of fucking paradigm shift. I don't even know if I believe what he's saying, but it makes enough sense. Well, it's helping to make sense of what's going on now. So I'll try and fucking explain what I think's going on now, and take this with a grain of salt because I have no fucking idea. I'm never going to claim I know anything ever again. But this is what I've been reading is going on, or that is claimed to be really going on with all this Israel and Gaza and the Middle East shit. So basically, you've got to think of the West as not America. America is a subjugated platform. It's had a corporate takeover. Donald Trump is a businessman and he's doing the bidding for the business class. But you've got to think of the West, and I'm including Australia, England, fucking Germany, Europe, Western Europe, all these countries. You've got to think of them as like vassal states for the transnational corporations, the money power. But the private money power that have no connections to a single country or a people. They only care about power and money. And this sort of power structure is made up of the financial industrial complex, like your BlackRocks, your Vanguards, your banks, the JP Morgans, all that sort of shit. The military industrial complex, Raytheon, Boeing, all those guys. There's also the consumer industrial complex. That's all the big fucking companies like fucking McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Hilton, all that sort of shit. There's also the tech industrial complex. You know the guys, Facebook, Tesla, Nvidia, fucking Apple, Microsoft, all those guys, and then pharmaceutical industrial complex as well. And these crews, they don't always operate together, but they mostly do. They mostly have the same goals, which is power, subjugation, money. At the top of this pyramid at the moment, usually back in like the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s as well, it was the military industrial complex that was at the top of this mountain. But now it's the financial guys, and the financial guys especially only care about profits. So how this ties into, and I don't know how much of this is reality. Well, we'll see soon, because it's going to have to play out like this if it's true. So, where do you even start? So you know how fucking Donald Trump a couple of months back said he wants to turn Gaza into the next Riviera. Well, that's kind of like true. So what seems to be going on is there's a group called the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, and it's made up of like the countries of the Gulf, like Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates. And so this crew has sort of made a political and economic union, and they're sort of working together. Now, historically, they've had a problem with Iran, especially Saudi Arabia, because a lot of these countries are Sunni Muslim and Iran is Shiite. Now, what seems to have happened, and remember Donald Trump went to fucking Qatar not long ago, and Saudi Arabia and fucking Elon Musk and all these guys went there, Sam Altman, and they all went there. So what seems to have happened is there has been some sort of fucking deal struck between the West and all these big financial institutions who Donald Trump is representing, like the tech guys, the finance guys, the military industrial complex, all these guys. Trump is more on the side of the finance and the business world than the military industrial complex. That's why they sort of weren't keen on Trump. That's why the military industrial complex, Dick Cheney's and that, fucking were going for Camilla more than Trump. Anyway, it seems like what's happened is there's been some sort of deal struck between the West and the Gulf Cooperation Council, like the Qataris, the Saudi Arabians, all these countries, United Arab Emirates, and it has something to do with the reconstruction of Gaza and also control of the Straits of Hormuz. But part of this deal that's, well, I think it's still in the process, but part of this deal is they need to bring Iran into the loop, and the whole Gulf has to be normalized. So no more extremist groups or fucking no more Hamases, no more fucking Hezbollahs, none of that shit. The Middle East has to normalize So this money can start pouring into the Middle East, and these Western multinational corporations can start earning money in the Middle East that doesn't involve bombing the shit out of people. So what's happened is apparently Iran has been pretty much dishing up the leaders of their proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, and there's also the Houthis as well, and Syria, dishing up the leaders of any of the extreme factions. Also, some of their extreme generals were fucking assassinated in Iran just before the US went in there and bombed them. But this is basically a symbol, or like a gesture from Iran to the GCC countries and also the West, the multinationals, to say, all right, we're going to play ball from now on. No more extremism, no more nuclear, no more fucking bullshit. We'll come in, we'll normalize the region, and we'll work on the prosperity of the whole region. Now, how Gaza comes into this is part of the deal the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, has with the West is Israel has to be demilitarized. But obviously there's this genocide and ethnic cleansing going on in Gaza. So what is said to be happening right now in Gaza is the Gazans are being used as negotiation leverage to get a better deal for the West from these Gulf nations. So the longer the ethnic cleansing and genocide continue, the better deal these multinational corporations are going to get, because the Gulf nations are more likely to say, all right, here, we'll give you 50% of the Straits of Hormuz, just stop the genocide, demilitarize Israel, and let's normalize and get peace in the region. Whereas on the other side, if the Israelis manage to fully ethnically cleanse the Palestinians from Palestine and Gaza, then the Gulf Cooperation Council pulls out of this deal with the multinational corporations from the West completely and turns to BRICS. And then all the profits and the deals and the power that comes along with the deals that were going to be made with the GCC and Iran go to the West's enemies. So it's a fucking balancing act here. And as for Israel, Israel actually is under an existential threat, but it's not an existential threat from Hamas or Iran. It's from the West pulling their military aid, financial aid, essentially abandoning Israel. So what Israel has to do is, as soon as possible, get the Palestinians out of Palestine, fully ethnically cleanse the region, and create a Jewish state which becomes a hegemon in the Middle East, which is fully controlled by the US. You can't think of Israel as controlling the US. I've punched through that conspiracy. I've gone straight through it. The US is in full control of Israel. You've got to think of Israel as a colonial outpost of the USA. Now, if Israel don't manage to fucking displace or murder every single person in Palestine, then the West is going to pull out and there's going to be trouble in Israel for the Israelis. And that's why they're going for this famine, this starvation fucking play at the moment. And it also explains why Egypt Jordan, Iran, all these surrounding areas aren't accepting any Palestinian refugees. One, because they've already got a shitload of them, but two is if the Palestinians are completely displaced, then Israel stays the power of the Middle East and becomes even more of a hegemon, and the Western multinationals, the Western powers, can control the region through their vassal state, Israel. And then over the years, or however long it takes, Israel becomes more and more of a sovereign unit. But from what I've been reading is the deals between the West and the GCC, the Gulf countries, are already more or less done. And the only holdout is Benjamin Netanyahu from Israel, because he is trying to get immunity for war crimes. He wants a safe passage somewhere, or diplomatic immunity, or safe harbor, or something before he abandons his cabinet and his cabinet falls apart. Now, none of this is like fully set in stone. A lot of shit can happen between now and then, but this is an alternative perspective that it kind of makes sense, because those Trump visits to the Middle East made no sense. And also the mainstream media is starting to turn on Israel. Piers Morgan, that's when I started getting suspicious. I'm like, this cunt has no soul. I'm like, don't fucking try and pretend he has a soul now. He went like fucking a year and a half supporting the genocide, and then all of a sudden he has a soul and he's against it. I'm like, no, he got word from someone. So you got to think of the media as just volume, and they're turning up the volume on this genocide now. You'll see a lot more end the genocide stuff through the mainstream media. The closer these deals, these apparent deals, come to getting done, the more you're going to hear stop the genocide. And I would say if all this is true, Trump is going to come in and stop the genocide in Gaza and become the hero. Netanyahu won't be prosecuted, but some Israelis will get done for war crimes, and this will be a process. So we'll see how all that plays out. But if it's anything like that, the evil is just fucking overwhelming. It's fucking overwhelming. Anyway, happy Saturday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you the fuck later.